Good evening. I'm Bill Maley, Brighton Town Supervisor, and I'm pleased to welcome you to the January 13th, 2021 Town Board meeting. This is our first regular meeting of the new year, 2021. And as I did at our organizational meeting last week, I think it's appropriate to again acknowledge that while we meet remotely, the town of Brighton is situated on the ancestral lands of the Onondaga tribe of the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, whom we recognize and honor as the traditional custodians of this land throughout the generations. The history, the culture, and traditions of Onondaga are worthy of our understanding and our study, and we praise those who keep their traditions alive. We recognize that the understanding of their culture is of ongoing importance if we are truly to understand the history of our community and our nation. And we support efforts to ensure that we and future generations continue that study in a way that is honest and truthful, so that in the words of Sacagawea, we may always work together to brighten the chain of friendship. Tonight, our meeting is being conducted remotely on Zoom, broadcast in Brighton on Spectrum Channel 1303, and live streamed on the town's YouTube channel, all in compliance with Governor Cuomo's executive order, modifying the provisions of the Open Meetings Law to enable local government bodies to meet remotely in a way that is open and accessible to the public. We continue to do that by holding an open forum at the start of every meeting, including our Zoom meetings. And in a moment, we'll give the public the opportunity to call in during the open forum. We also make our meetings accessible to the deaf and hard of hearing communities with our ASL sign language interpreters. Tonight, as we so often do, we have Heather and Allie with us. Thank you both. As a reminder, for those of you that are watching and want to follow along with the work we're doing, tonight's agenda and all the supporting material, the good news is it's shorter than usual, but it's all online on the Town of Brighton webpage, www.townofbrighton.org. I'll start the meeting with a pledge to the flag. Get the flag into view here. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Tonight, before our open forum, we do have two proclamations. The first one I presented earlier this week on Monday, January 11th, which each year is recognized as National Slavery and Human Trafficking Prevention Day. January is also National Slavery and Human Trafficking Protection Month. And the Rochester Area Coalition is a coalition of a number of organizations, each dedicated, at least as part of their work, to addressing the issues of human slavery and human trafficking with what I consider to be just such an appropriate but very simple two-word message. Yes, here. Human trafficking is not an issue just in some foreign country or in some other part of the state. It is here in the Rochester area. It's here in urban Rochester. It's in suburban Rochester. It's an issue in rural Rochester. Yes, here, including in Brighton. So let me read this proclamation. Whereas human trafficking is a modern form of slavery involving the use of fraud, force, or coercion to exploit people for labor, domestic servitude, or commercial sex acts. And whereas an estimated 26 million adults and children of all ages, races, and socioeconomic backgrounds are victimized in countries around the world, including the United States and our own community. Whereas there is no evidence that traffickers are more likely to be of a particular race, nationality, gender, or sexual orientation. They may be family members, romantic partners, acquaintances, or strangers. Whereas the National Human Trafficking Hotline reports that the majority of trafficking is in the commercial sex trade and disproportionately affects women and girls, with over 22,000 victims and survivors identified in the United States in 2019. Whereas the town of Brighton supports the efforts being made by law enforcement, advocacy organizations, faith communities, and other activists both locally and around the world to prevent human trafficking and protect victims of trafficking. Now therefore be it proclaimed that I, William W. Maley, Brighton Town Supervisor, on behalf of the entire town board, do hereby proclaim January 11, 2021 to be National Slavery and Human Trafficking Prevention Day in the town of Brighton, and use this opportunity to make all members of our community aware of the evils of human trafficking so that trafficking and slavery can be stopped and victims and survivors are given justice and freedom. Proclamation was signed on January 11th, 2021. Second, I have a proclamation commemorating Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day, this coming Monday, January 18th. Whereas Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. promoted his belief in the equality of all men and women and courageously employed the principle of nonviolence as the primary strategy to fight for freedom and justice for all, ultimately giving his own life after enduring years of personal sacrifice. Whereas Dr. King's legacy has inspired generations of Americans to advocate for and protect civil rights through peaceful means, and in light of the attack on the US Capitol, it behooves all of us to reflect upon the fundamental tenets of his philosophy. And whereas in a country as divided as ours is today, we must remember that Dr. King believed, embodied, and professed these central ideas: that the means must be as pure as the end, remain steadfast in the constant refusal to inflict injury upon another, and embrace the belief that there is within human nature amazing potentiality for goodness. And whereas less than a year before his assassination, a series of Dr. King's essays were published in a book entitled, and this title is just so prescient, "Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos or Community?" in which he reviewed successes of the civil rights movement and enumerated challenges ahead, including the need to dismantle structural racism. Whereas the insidiousness of structural racism has been illuminated for the American people, as Black Lives Matter activists marched here, across the country, and in nations around the world, employing nonviolent protests to demand an end to violence against Black people and to secure the quantifiable changes needed to ensure the equitable treatment of Black people in all matters of society. And whereas today we honor Dr. King's life and teachings and work to continue overcoming barriers and bringing people from different backgrounds together, choosing community over chaos and standing firm against those who would undo his sacred legacy. Now therefore be it proclaimed that I, William W. Maley, Brighton Town Supervisor, on behalf of the entire Brighton Town Board, do hereby commemorate Monday, January 18, 2021, as Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day in the town of Brighton, and ask that the people of the town of Brighton not only reflect on the ideals that Dr. King embodied, but continue his work every day by working together to end all forms of injustice and discrimination, and strive for the day when all women and men will be judged not by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. And this proclamation is signed this 13th day of January, 2021. I do want to note that normally on Dr. Martin Luther King Day, one of the highlights in this community is the celebration of Dr. King's life put on by the Dr. Martin Luther King Commission at the Eastman Theater. Now, of course, this year it is impossible to hold that event in person, but it is being held remotely online. It's an event that I always encourage people to attend. It is a moving, challenging, uplifting way to start the day. And today, and this year, it will be much easier than it normally is with the availability. There's a link on Facebook. And I really do. I can't encourage the community enough. There are many activities in the coming days. Ironic, indeed, that we are celebrating Dr. King's life, in his birthday, in his commitment to nonviolence at a time when, sadly, so many have abandoned truth, abandoned justice, and taken up violence. And Dr. King's legacy shows us that that is simply a false way. I do want to just update community on a couple of things. One, rapid COVID testing is continuing at Temple Brith Kodesh from 2 to 4 every Tuesday and Thursday. And what's happening now is, my understanding is each week, sign up is opening up online on Friday afternoons for the following week. If you go to the Monroe County webpage, www.monroecounty.gov, there's a link there that will take you to the sign up. At the location here in Brighton at Temple Brith Kodesh on Elmwood Avenue, pre-registration is mandatory. We are trying to get as many people signed up and through as possible, and we can only do that if people register in advance. Now, when it comes to vaccinations, I'm sure most of you have heard that the so-called 1B population, which includes a number of groups, including many first responders, as well as now the general population, 65 and over, and people with immunodeficiencies, that those vaccinations, well, people are now eligible for those vaccines in that 1B group. However, there's a big difference between eligibility and availability. And anybody that's tried to make an appointment in that group knows that availability is very, very difficult, near impossible at this point for that group. Now, as of this afternoon, both UR Med and Rochester Regional Health have indicated that they will be notifying people in category 1B who are patients of medical practices affiliated with those two systems that they can make an appointment. They'll be doing this randomly. They ask that you not call your doctor's office directly, but they will be randomly selecting people in that group for appointments. Now, I will be looking very carefully at what the plans are for vaccinating people who are not affiliated with either one of those healthcare groups, many of whom are in populations that are chronically underserved in this community and elsewhere by the healthcare system and are at enhanced risk of COVID. We know this from the statistics. We want to make sure, the governor has spoken early on about equity. I think it's important that we hold everybody's feet to the fire and make sure that those communities are being equitably and then some afforded access to vaccination. I strongly encourage everyone to please get the vaccine when it becomes available to you. The Pfizer and Moderna vaccines have been approved. They have been thoroughly tested. And as we know from the history of smallpox and polio, vaccines are the way that those terrible viral diseases were eliminated or nearly eliminated in the case of polio. But at the very least, when we look at other viruses like the flu, limited in their scope and impact on our lives. So please, when you have the opportunity to do so, I strongly encourage everybody watching to get your vaccine. I do want to thank people that have reached out and asked me, are you all right after what happened this past week, the despicable insurrection that took place in Washington? I am. But the more important question is whether our democracy is all right. This year, the electoral process worked, and the federal government's own advisors have assured anyone who would listen that the November elections were conducted in a fair manner without widespread fraud. Sadly, however, not everybody has listened to those experts, including the highest official of the land, who has spread canards and falsehoods. And it is those untruths in his inciting language spoken on the ellipse on Wednesday and elsewhere that led to the violence that afternoon and that evening in what will surely go down in American history as one of our darkest days. As I mentioned a moment ago, it is indeed ironic that as we celebrate Dr. Martin Luther King Day next Monday and the life of a man who practiced and lived a life of nonviolence and commitment to equity and changed our nation as a result, we find ourselves threatened by those who have been led to believe that violence is the answer. They are wrong. And those who are propagating falsehoods about the election must stop. And those who perpetrated and incited the violence last Wednesday must be identified and, where appropriate, tried for their criminal acts. On January 20th, our new president will be inaugurated, and the transition of power, while sadly not the peaceful transition that we've long celebrated, but that transition will occur. That is the American way, and all true American patriots will celebrate that transfer of power. Okay. We will now go to the open forum. If anyone would like to call in to ask a question or comment, whether it's something that's on our agenda this evening or not, whether you're a Brighton resident or not, you can call in The phone number is 303-3060. That's 303-3060. Someone will take your call and will pass on your comment or your question to me. And while we give people the opportunity to call in if we'd like to, we'll start with the business of our meeting. Chris Werner, I will ask you to move to approve the agenda. But please unmute.
Yes, unmuted. I move that we approve the agenda, Bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I have a second?
Second, Jason.
Any discussion? Hearing none. Dan, please call the roll.
Member DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado?
Aye.
Supervisor Maley?
Aye. Dan, your volume is, I can hear you, but it's on the low side. We do have one item of communication in our packet this evening from Mr. Carlos Garcia of 3241 Elmwood Avenue, complimenting Police Chief David Cathaldi on some dealings that Mr. Garcia has had and his observation of the work of our police chief. So can I have a motion to receive and file that communication?
So moved. Christine. Second, Robin.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none. Dan, please call the roll.
Quick test first.
Perfect.
Councilmember DePonzio?
Aye.
Councilmember Werner?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt?
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado?
Aye.
Supervisor Maley?
Aye. We have not received any open forum calls, so we will move right into our committee reports. And while our committees are not meeting, our committee chairs are remaining active, engaged with matters that would otherwise be coming before their committee and will report to us tonight, starting with our Community Services Committee. Robin.
Thank you, Bill. As you mentioned, the Community Services Committee was not scheduled to meet in the intervening time since our last town board meeting, but I do have some updates from our department heads from our Recreation Department. For our recreation programs, the Winter Spring 2021 program registration has begun. We're excited to see the registrations coming in for our new lineup of online and in-person programs. Please check the website, your email, and the Recreation Department Facebook page to stay up to date with all of our latest happenings. We just love to have you join our online community. With regard to our Monroe County Grab and Go Senior Meal Program, Brighton Seniors continues to provide grab and go style meals each week as part of the Monroe County Nutrition Program. We're thrilled to announce that this important program will continue into 2021. You can order ahead packaged meals. They're available to seniors age 60 plus. And thanks to the efforts of our Recreation Department, meal pickup is at our very own Brookside Recreation Center. So please do contact us for full program details and to place your order. The number to do that is 585-784-5260, extension 0. And please just leave your name and phone number and we will follow up with all of the details. Our Brighton Farmers Market is now closed for the winter season. Reopening plans will be announced in the spring of 2021, so please do check back in March for reopening details. And you can also see the Brighton Farmers Market website for updates. That URL is www.brightonfarmersmarket.org. And our Recreation Department just wants to note some programs of interest. And Jason, this might be good for you. We have dog training, mad science, virtual fitness, Sculpey clay, cross-country skiing, skiing and snowboarding, horseback riding, gentle yoga, and so much more. So we look forward to a great 2021 season. Recreation program updates will be communicated again via email, the town website, and the Recreation Department Facebook page. From our Parks Department, rental facilities will remain closed until we emerge from the orange zone COVID designation. We have refunded all facility reservations through February and will continue to monitor our status on a monthly basis. We're working on filling a full-time vacancy in the Parks Department currently. This will allow us to restructure some and shift our times to better suit department and community needs. We continue to work with the Urban Forestry Group led by the inimitable George Smith to identify, plant, protect, and maintain various park trees. We will also be focusing our efforts on trail maintenance and have identified multiple areas in our trail system that need maintenance work. Unfortunately, the COVID restrictions put on staff this past summer and fall limited our ability to complete some trail maintenance projects. So we will be focusing on those this season. Parks and trails continue to be heavily utilized. We've not had a lot of snow. They present a good passive and active recreational option. Park staff are busy with inventory, preventative equipment maintenance, along with various other projects that have been identified on our ongoing maintenance schedule. We're continuing to identify potential capital improvement projects for budget input. And even though the athletic fields are currently closed, we are receiving a much higher number of 2021 field use requests from various sports organizations. So we'll stay up to date on that. We continue to monitor and evaluate our department COVID-19 policy to keep both staff and the community safe when we do reopen all of our facilities. An update to our CCA, this month, Brighton became the first municipality in Monroe County to launch a community choice aggregation program. And again, this program allows us to leverage our collective purchasing power to reduce our energy prices and source our energy more sustainably. The price, which is fixed for 2 years, is lower than that of our other renewable sources of energy and lower than what RGE typically charges its customers for non-renewable sources of energy. And because it is based on New York recs, it will qualify Brighton for certain New York State Energy and Research Development Authority or NYSERDA grants. Now, the CCA is an automatic opt-in program. So to take advantage of the CCA, eligible residents and small businesses did not have to complete any administrative paperwork. Now, your town elected officials as residents were also automatically opted into the CCA, and as such, we know that our distribution company, RGE, sent a rather confusing letter out this past week that may have made recipients think that their energy supply was switched to an ESCO as opposed to our town's CCA. The good news is, and the important thing to know is that if you want to be in the CCA, you don't have to do anything with this letter. Just ignore this letter and you will be opted in the CCA as anticipated. Our next anticipated meeting was Wednesday, January 20th for the Community Services Committee meeting, but that meeting has been canceled. And that's all I have.
Thanks, Robin. I'm so glad you talked about the letter. I was planning on doing so later because that letter did confuse a lot of people. We anticipated that it would. We saw it before it went out. I fought with RGE trying to get them to either eliminate it or change it. There are some, real misstatements in there. But, it's interesting talking with the folks here who are getting calls. The biggest concern that people are really sort of expressing when they get this communication, they're wondering if there's some kind of scam going on. So they're calling the town of Brighton, and we're able to confirm that no, yes, it's a confusing letter, but it's okay. You don't have to do anything. But again, I want to particularly stress for people who have been using so-called ESCOs, or energy service companies other than RG&E. this is because you weren't switched over. You're still on that ESCO, but this is a great time to look at your bill. Hey, I'm the first to admit, I haven't looked at my bill in years until the CCA program came along. But particularly if you've got an ESCO where there is a lot of history of sort of lowballing, bait and switch kind of tactics. In one of our community meetings on a Zoom meeting, there was a longtime resident of Brighton who has an ESCO, and he was paying through his ESCO over 11 cents a kilowatt hour, whereas the rate, and that was for dirty, that was for the traditional natural gas, nuclear, maybe some coal, dirty mix, unlike the 100% New York renewable energy that goes for almost about 4.3 cents per kilowatt hour. So when he realized that he was paying 11 cents instead of the 4.3, you can bet that he got on the phone the next day to make that change. So ESCO customers in particular, take a look at your bill. You really are very likely to not only get renewable energy for the first time, but also have some real savings. So thank you for bringing up that letter. We will move on now to the Finance Committee. Jason?
Yes, Bill, the Finance Committee was supposed to meet last week after our organizational meeting. However, it was canceled. But Finance Director Paula Parker did submit a memo with supporting documentation about each of the items that would have appeared on our agenda. And each of those items will be voted on and appear on tonight's town board agenda and will be discussed in further detail. Our next meeting, which would have been scheduled for Tuesday, January 19th, like our other committee meetings, has been canceled. And stay tuned. Hopefully someday we'll return to meeting in person, but for now, in the short term, we remain canceled. Thanks.
Thank you, Jason. Public Safety, Christine?
Yes, Public Safety was to have met yesterday morning, but once again did not. However, I do have updates. Brighton Volunteer Ambulance reports that BVA finished 2020 with 5,798 calls, which was down 12% from the prior year. December of 2020, however, was the busiest month ever at 615 calls for service. At the worst point during the COVID pandemic, BVA volume was down 35%. And the chief reports that they are remaining fully staffed and taking a significant amount of volume in neighboring districts compared to historical numbers. They are managing exorbitant cost increases in some cases in relation to the pandemic. In some cases, PPE has gone up over 400% in cost. And that's critical for them to be able to conduct their work safely. They have maintained a full and healthy staff. Only 7 staff members have had COVID, which is a stellar number, and they've recovered. 80% of the staff have elected to receive the COVID vaccine, and all of those have completed their first dose, and all are now scheduled for their second dose. And this is important as well. Ambulance, EMS, EMT staff were not initially included in the first wave of designated recipients of the vaccine. However, with some effort now in New York State, they are included, and in Brighton, the vast majority of the staff are vaccinated and so are protected and protecting those that they are assisting. An update from the Brighton Police Department. Families in the Brighton Central School District have received a notice that their students in the high school will be invited to participate in the Rochester Community Policing Survey. This is being done in partnership with Roberts Wesleyan College. They're collaborating on a joint initiative that's examining perceptions within the broader Rochester community on law enforcement. The survey targets 16 to 25-year-olds, and it hopes to provide results on how perceptions in communities of color can affect recruiting efforts and efforts to diversify agencies. An initial survey had been started back in 2018, but the sample size was too small. So this survey should have broader reach. Roberts Wesleyan has sent this survey to several school districts. It may have touched some of the other 4 districts that serve Brighton, although I'm not certain. And at the time the chief and I connected, he was not certain if the other districts are participating in this as well. It's a multiple choice questionnaire. It takes about 15 minutes for students to complete. The students will receive an electronic survey tomorrow. It is completely voluntary, and the students can complete the survey between January 14th and January 20th. And Roberts Wesleyan will share the results with the board and other law enforcement agencies that are participating in this program soon after. And the chief will share those results with us at that time. Is there anything else you want to add to that, David?
No, I think you summed it up well. This is just really going to look at, community perceptions and how that affects our recruiting. This is not the survey that we have discussed previously in collaboration with RIT. The RIT survey will hopefully be coming out next week, which will be a community-wide survey.
Thank you. At this time, there's no update from the Brighton Fire Department or the Rochester Fire Department serving the west side of Brighton. Perhaps by the next time we all meet, we will have an update from that agency. The next public safety meeting, should COVID clear, which is unlikely, would be Tuesday, February 9th at 8 a.m. in Town Hall. Unlikely that we will be meeting, but we do attend to matters of public safety. Anyone in the community who has a matter that needs to be addressed can contact me or any member of the Public Safety Committee. You can find contact information at townofbrighton.org/public safety committee. And that is all.
Thank you, Christine. And finally, Chris, Public Works Committee.
Thanks, Bill. The Public Works Department has been engaged with the rapid COVID test site. They staff that, and that's ongoing, as you've indicated, Bill, by appointment. Sidewalk bids are currently being prepared. Documents are being prepared for the French Road and North Landing Road sidewalk project. We anticipate that those documents will be available for bidding at the beginning of February. The barn at the farmer's market is nearing completion, and we anticipate that the contractor will complete the project at the end of January. Also, it has been an unusually snowless winter, as we're very pleased to see. However, the freezing drizzle has warranted numerous salt runs by our crews. There's never a shortage of work, though, and the crews continue to pick up the containerized lawn and garden debris, patching potholes, evaluating trimming down trees, and just general maintenance on vehicles and facilities, and develop a plan for priority projects in 2021. Although they're not out in the snowplows, they continue to be busy back at the garage. Anything to add at all, Mike?
They're picking up Christmas trees too.
Well,
Yeah, live Christmas trees. If you still have them, put them out by the street. Don't wrap them in plastic or anything. Don't put them in the street. Put them on the lawn, and our crews will pick those up as well.
Other than that, Chris, I think you covered it very well.
Thank you, Mike.
Okay.
He would be February 2nd, but as always, as is the other committees, we're waiting to see how the pandemic continues.
Thank you, Chris. Moving on to new business. The first item, Jason, reading and approval of claims.
Yes, Bill, earlier today, I reviewed claims totaling $616,638.58. Notable claims include to BLM Construction Company in the amount of $86,735, for the application number 4, payment for construction services for the Brighton Farmers Market project. Also to Depository Trust Company in the amount of $8,281.25 for biannual interest payment on the 2019 serial bonds issued. Also to Fisher Associates in the amount of $7,085.27 for payment for consulting services on the Highland Crossing Trail project. Also to the U.S. Postmaster in the amount of $3,500, representing payment for the required postage for the mailing of the winter spring newsletter. And finally, to Waste Management in the amount of $86,025.60, representing the monthly charges to our refuse districts for refuse service. The claims all appear to be in order, and I move that they be approved.
Second, Robin. Oh, sorry.
Gotcha. Thank you. Any questions or comments? Hearing none. Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePonzio,
Aye.
Councilmember Werner,
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt,
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado,
Aye.
Supervisor Mealy.
Aye. Chris, why don't I have you do the next two?
Yes, thanks, Bill. The next item is to authorize the solicitation of bids for goods and services for town facilities as included in the 2021 budget. I move that we adopt the resolution before us.
Second, Robin.
This is something we do annually to allow various procurement relating to our town facilities, and it's the companion to the next one that does the same thing for various of our departments for routine, ongoing purchases. Mike, anything more you want to? Or Paul?
No, I think that covers it pretty well, Bill. It's just, it allows us to do our general maintenance work with throughout the town.
Without having to come back to us every other week.
Correct. Correct.
Good. Any discussion? Hearing none. Dan?
As Mike has outlined in his letter, this is just for hardware cleaning, landscaping materials, tools, paint, electrical, plumbing, HVAC, and miscellaneous building supplies that are consumed during the year.
Just.
Yeah, the big stuff still obviously gets addressed separately. We have that motion and seconded. Anything further? Hearing none. Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePonzio,
Aye.
Councilmember Werner,
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt,
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado, Supervisor Mealy.
Aye.
And Bill, the
Chris?
next is the companion to authorize the solicitation of bids for goods and services for the highway, sewer, and DPW, Department of Public Works, as included in the 2021 budget. I move that we adopt the resolution before us.
Can I have a second?
Jason.
Jason, thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePonzio,
Aye.
Councilmember Werner,
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt,
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado. Christine, your volume is,
Yeah, I think you're
I
muted. There
can
you go.
see you, but we're not hearing you.
Yeah, for some reason, we're not hearing you, Christine.
Restraint.
Whoa,
There you are.
That.
Okay.
and Supervisor Mealy.
Aye. Next item, Robin.
Thanks, Bill. The next matter seeks to authorize the supervisor to renew an agreement with Electronic Field Productions, Inc. for the provision of video production and cable television management services in an amount not to exceed $52,000. I move that we adopt the resolution as prepared by the town attorney.
Second, Christine.
And of course, that's the renewal of a longstanding contract. And you see Steve Del Monte's name up there on the screen. We appreciate the good work you do, Steve, and your team. And we also appreciate the fact that the price didn't go up this year. So thank you for that too. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePonzio,
Aye.
Councilmember Werner,
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt,
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado,
Aye.
Supervisor Manley.
Aye. Christine, why don't you do the next one?
Certainly. The next matter seeks to authorize the supervisor to execute fee agreements with Interpretech and Sign Language Connections for American Sign Language interpreters for the town board meetings for 2021. I move that we adopt the resolution before us.
Second, Chris.
Any discussion? Thank you to our interpreters. We're happy to have you working for us, but more importantly, working for the community for another year. Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePonzio,
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt,
Aye.
sorry, Councilmember Werner,
Aye.
sorry, Councilmember Corrado. Oh, I didn't.
Yeah.
I get to vote too.
So, Christine's audio's out again.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, we're not.
Let's try this.
There you go.
Okay, it's the last I that was not heard. It showed that the microphone was on. So
Yeah, it is showing on, but
Yes,
was
it is.
dropping out. So I don't know.
so sorry. Well, I.
Aye. And Supervisor Manley.
Aye. And we'll test that microphone, Christine, and let you do the last item.
Very good. The last matter seeks to accept the donation from Howard Cohen in the amount of $500 and amend the 2021 operating budget of the police department to reflect said donation. I move that we adopt the resolution before us.
Aye. First, second, Robin.
We have Mr. Cohen's donation referenced here. Chief, anything you would like to say about this generous contribution from Mr. Cohen?
Mr. Cohen's been a longtime supporter of the police department, and I sent him a personal thank you letter appreciating the donation. We certainly will put it to good use in our program line. Haven't quite figured out how to spend it yet, but we will by the end of the year. So longtime supporter, and I thank him for his support.
You know, we do. There are people who have shown their support to our police department with donations large and small over the years. They're not necessary, obviously, but they are so gratefully accepted and appreciated. So Mr. Cohen, thank you so much for your generosity. We have a motion and a second. Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DePonzio,
Aye.
Councilmember Werner,
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt,
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado,
Aye.
Supervisor Manley.
Aye. I have nothing. Matters of the town attorney.
I do not have anything other than what we're going to discuss in executive session.
Sounds good. Matters of the clerk.
Since tax collection has begun again, just as a reminder to folks who may not have heard the message yet, we've got the drop box located at the rear of Town Hall next to entrance number 9. Envelopes are available at the door in case you don't have one handy. We ask that you write your name and property address on the outside of the envelope because we scan all those in before we send them to the bank, just so we know what we're taking in. Additionally, I've gotten a bunch of calls this week. M&T is not able to collect taxes this cycle. They've made the business decision for the health safety of their staff during COVID that they will not be able to do that. Again, the Dropbox and mail are the preferred methods. Credit cards are still an option as always. However, the federal funding that was in place during 2020 that allowed for cards to not be charged the service charge from the county in the fall, that funding is not in place for 2021. So there is a 2.75% service charge on any credit card transactions over $100. So it's still usable, but perhaps not the deal it was in the fall. And that's it.
Thank you, Dan. Members, matters of the town board.
Nothing for me.
Then can I have a motion to go into executive session to discuss a matter of collective bargaining and litigation?
So moved.
Second, Robin.
Any discussion? Dan, please call the roll.
Councilmember DeFonzio,
Aye.
Councilmember Werner,
Aye.
Councilmember Wilt,
Aye.
Councilmember Corrado,
Aye.
Supervisor Manley.
Aye. I do not anticipate that we'll be coming out of executive session, that we'll coming back into public session at the end of the executive session. So we will sign off, but have a great evening. Our next town board meeting will be Wednesday, January 27th at 7 p.m. Be well, everybody. Have a nice night.